Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. The carpet was warm from the sun. That's the last thing my feet felt before they touched the cold tile of the front porch. She didn't slam the door. She didn't say goodbye. She just didn't close it. Left it slightly open, like maybe I'd come crawling back. Or maybe she was too distracted to care. I stood there holding a grocery bag I never got to unpack. Inside, almond milk she wouldn't drink because she stopped liking almond milk 3 weeks ago. Something I only found out yesterday. There was also a bar of that overpriced soap she started using after her yoga phase began. And carrots. I don't know why I grabbed carrots. We both hate carrots. I didn't ask for an explanation. Because I knew. The signs weren't loud. They were quiet in that terrifying, surgical kind of way. Like someone stealing from you in daylight. A laugh that ended too fast. The way her phone stayed face down even in the shower. And the strangest one. She stopped humming while folding laundry. That's how I knew she was gone, even before she said the words. I walked to my car, tossed the bag in the passenger seat, and sat there like a backup character in someone else's life. My fingers hovered over the ignition for a solid 5 minutes. Then I took out my phone. No one to call. No one I trusted enough to say. She told me to leave. Not even my brother, who still thought we were the perfect couple. So I called the bank instead. No rage. No shouting. Just numbers and silence. Balance, $48,321. 76. By the end of the call, $0. 00 in that account. I moved it all. Not to punish her, to protect myself. Because when someone stops humming during laundry, they're already building a life that doesn't include you. And I wasn't going to fund it. Later that night, I checked our credit cards. She'd already bought something. Something expensive. Something I wasn't supposed to see. That's when I realized. She never planned to explain anything. She expected me to walk away quietly. And I almost did. But what I found next changed everything, and made me realize this wasn't just a breakup. It was an ambush. I wasn't even sure why I checked the transaction history. Maybe I was hoping for a new yoga mat or some overpriced candle that claimed to smell like moonlight and intention. But what I saw wasn't wellness. It was war. A single charge, posted just 3 hours after I left the house. $3,200. 00. Avalon Private Retreat, Guest Reservation. I stared at it like it was written in a language I didn't recognize. Not a hotel. Not a spa. A retreat. That word hit differently. It wasn't booked under both our names. Just hers. I knew exactly where that place was. It was 2 hours north, a secluded villa compound in the mountains. The kind of place people go when they want to disappear. Or when they want to hide. So while she was pretending to be heartbroken, she was sipping turmeric lattes in a luxury robe, probably beside someone else who also didn't ask questions. That's when the ache in my stomach started. Not the sharp kind. The slow, acidic kind that tells you your gut was right all along. That you were the idiot. I didn't cry this time. I didn't even speak. I just sat there in Glenn's kitchen, lit only by the glow of the fridge because I hadn't turned the lights on. His three-legged cat, which I still didn't know the name of, was sitting on the counter like a judgmental therapist. Staring. $3, 200, I whispered. For healing. The next morning, I drove. Not to work. Not to confront her. I just drove. Through old neighborhoods. Past the grocery store where we had our first stupid argument over avocados. Past the restaurant we both pretended to enjoy on anniversaries. Everything felt like a fake memory. Like someone else's marriage I'd watched from a distance. Eventually, I pulled into a parking lot of a coffee shop I used to visit during college. I hadn't been there in over a decade, but the sign was still crooked and the coffee still tasted like burnt hope. I opened my laptop, created a new email address. Then I signed into her old Pinterest account. Yeah, she used the same password for everything. I never told her I knew. Never had a reason to until now. What I found made my blood run cold. Private boards. Secret folders. Quotes about freedom and new beginnings. Articles on how to hide assets during divorce. Guides for solo female travel. A bucket list. At the top of that list. Leave clean. Leave early. Leave nothing behind. She had been planning this. For months. And somehow, I had slept beside her every night, blind to it all. I closed the laptop slowly, like if I moved too fast, everything around me would shatter. I leaned back in the chair, surrounded by strangers, and realized. She didn't just want me out of the house. She wanted me out of the story. But not yet. Not without a fight I hadn't even started. I didn't go back to Glenn's that night. I needed silence. Real silence. Not the kind interrupted by microwave beeps and Glenn's half-muttered dreams about raccoons. I drove out to an old overlook by Route 9, where we used to park in college. Back when we thought forever meant something. I sat in the car, engine off, hands on the wheel, staring out at the foggy lights of the city like they owed me an explanation. That's when I remembered something stupid. Marlo once shared a Google Drive folder with me back when she was planning my surprise birthday trip to Portland. The one that got canceled because she had work emergencies for 3 days straight. I never thought to remove myself. Maybe she hadn't either. I opened the app, and there it was. Still shared. Still open. Still full. And not with birthday plans. There were PDFs, spreadsheets, scans of my pay stubs, her handwritten notes, scanned into neat little folders titled things like exit options and future timeline. My name appeared over and over again in bullet points. My faults, my patterns, my bank activity, even my sleep habits. It read like she was studying me, like she was profiling me. But the worst file was a video. It was only 16 seconds long. At first, I thought it was static, a blurry, dim shot of our bedroom. But then the frame adjusted, and I saw her, sitting on the edge of the bed, in her robe, talking. But not to me. He'll leave on his own. Just wait. He always avoids conflict. I don't even have to lie. She was smirking. Not smiling, smirking. The file was named. Practice. Delete later. She never deleted it. I sat frozen, watching it twice, 3 times, trying to make sense of the voice I had once fallen asleep beside. I barely noticed how tightly my fingers were gripping the phone until my knuckles went white. My heart wasn't even racing. It was just cold, numb, like the betrayal had moved in and taken over my bloodstream. And I knew something else now, something I hadn't dared admit before. She was waiting for me to crack, to lash out, to make a mistake. Because the moment I did, I'd become the villain in her story. The crazy, fragile ex-husband who just couldn't handle it. The reason she had no choice but to take everything. But I wasn't going to give her that ending. No, I'd write my own. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the driver's seat, parked under that same flickering street lamp, watching it stutter like a bad omen while the hours slid past. My phone battery was dead by 4 a.m., and I didn't even notice. I wasn't scrolling. I wasn't calling anyone. I was just staring at the dash, trying to figure out how long I'd been nothing more than a placeholder in my own life. By the time the sky turned that colorless, early morning gray, I knew what I needed to do. I drove to the cheapest co-working space in town and bought a day pass. I didn't go there to work. I went there to disappear, in plain sight. Surrounded by strangers who didn't know my name, didn't know I was the guy whose wife had rehearsed his exit like a presentation. Once I was on Wi-Fi, I did what most husbands never think to do. I opened her online calendar. It was something she had shared with me years ago, during her productivity-obsessed era. We used to sync goals and plan out date nights. She probably forgot the link even existed. I didn't. At first, it looked like a normal week. Pilates, conference calls, dentist appointment. Nothing out of place. But then I noticed something strange. A blocked-off event labeled Silent Sunday. No details. No location. Just 5 hours, marked in red. I clicked on it. Nothing. No metadata. No attached notes. Except one thing. It was repeating. Every Sunday. For the last 4 months. I dug deeper. Checked past entries. Every time I remembered her saying she was going to see her sister, or to her meditation group, or just needed time to breathe, this little red block was there, sitting quietly behind the curtain. I had never asked. I always gave her space. That Sunday, she wasn't visiting anyone. She wasn't meditating. She was with him. I didn't know who he was yet, but there was no doubt in my mind he existed. I could feel it now, in the way she stopped texting back mid-conversation, in how her eyes darted when I mentioned old memories, in the way her body turned away from me even in sleep. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something that made my stomach flip. She never wanted me angry. She wanted me quiet, compliant, predictable. She had built a strategy around my passiveness. She knew I'd walk out without slamming the door. She counted on me folding instead of fighting. That's when the bitterness turned into clarity. Not rage. Not yet. Just a burning, sharp awareness that this wasn't just betrayal. This was planning, design, architecture. So I made my own entry in her calendar. Same day, same time. Title: You left the door open. Then I logged out. I wanted her to know I wasn't gone. Not yet. She thought she was watching the pieces fall exactly where she placed them. But she didn't realize the board had already shifted. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not at that cafe, not at that time, not at that exact table where the window light spilled just enough to keep me mostly in shadow. When she walked in, wearing the same beige coat she always claimed was for errands, her hair tied up in the effortless way that took her 20 minutes and 3 Pinterest saves. She scanned the room, not looking for anyone, not expecting anything. She ordered her usual oat milk cappuccino, extra hot, and sat down in the far left booth. She didn't look around. She didn't notice me. And she certainly didn't expect her phone to vibrate exactly 4 minutes later. I saw her blink. Just once. A flicker of confusion, then a slow tilt of her head as she unlocked the screen. Her fingers froze. Her thumb hovered, then tapped the notification. And in the glow of the morning sun, I watched her face drain of color. Not panic, no. This was something colder. Something deeper. The look of someone who'd just realized they left the vault door open with a thief still inside. She didn't move for a full 30 seconds. Then she picked up her phone, opened her messages, and typed something. I knew who it was for. Me. Sure enough, my phone lit up under the table. Marlo, did you do this? No, hi. No, how are you? Just a question that told me everything I needed to know. She was scared. Not of what I'd do, but of what I knew. I didn't reply. She started typing again, then deleted it, then typed again. Her leg was bouncing now, a soft but rapid rhythm of unraveling. She looked around the cafe once, briefly, but never toward my corner. Her eyes never trained themselves to see me anymore, even when I was right in front of her. I finished my coffee, waited until she pulled out her second phone. That's right, her second phone. I'd suspected it. Glimpsed it once in her gym bag months ago, chalked it up to work, didn't ask. Because back then, I still gave her the benefit of the doubt. But now, I watched her type into it quickly, nervously, then put it away just as fast. I left the cafe without her seeing me. Slipped out while she was distracted. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't crushed by the weight of what I'd just seen. I wasn't devastated. I was focused. This wasn't just a betrayal anymore. It was a game. And she had played the first half assuming I wouldn't show up to the board. But I had. Quietly. Deliberately. And I was already 3 moves ahead. Later that day, I bought a burner phone. Just one. Cheap, small, basic. I used it to send a message to a number I pulled from the metadata of that retreat reservation confirmation she accidentally left synced to our old inbox. Just 5 words. How long has it been? I didn't include my name, but I knew he'd know exactly who it was. I didn't expect him to reply. I assumed he'd see the message, delete it, maybe warn her, and they'd go back to pretending their little affair lived in the shadows. But he didn't ignore it. He replied, at 2:47 a.m. No name, no greeting, just a sentence that hit me harder than anything she'd ever said. You have no idea who she really is. I stared at the screen, not even sure what I was feeling. It wasn't shock. It wasn't betrayal anymore. It was a kind of slow, sick dread, the kind you feel when you realize the ground you've been standing on isn't solid. Had never been. Had never even existed. I texted back. Then tell me. No answer. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even after I stared at my phone like an addict waiting for a dealer. But something about his message burned in the back of my skull. You have no idea who she really is. Not what she did. Not what she planned. Who she is. So I started digging. I knew she'd changed her name when we got married, but not in the way most people do. She didn't just take mine. She rewrote hers. Legally. She once told me it was because she hated her middle name. I believed her. But now I wasn't so sure. I pulled up the documents from our marriage license. Cross-checked it with our old insurance paperwork. Then I went further back, into a government database I still had access to from an old freelance contract. It wasn't exactly legal for me to be using it, but at this point, legality felt like a formality in a war. She started with a smirk. And that's when I saw it. Not one name change. 3. 3 different legal identities over the past 10 years. One in Arizona, one in Oregon, one in Ohio. All before me. The names weren't wildly different. Just adjusted slightly. A middle name swapped here, a surname slightly altered there. But all tied to the same birthday. Same photo. Same woman. Marlo, if that was even her name, had been reinventing herself over and over every few years. No court records. No criminal charges. Just quiet, clean exits. Each time, she stayed just long enough to build something with someone. A shared lease. A business venture. A financial connection. Then she disappeared. No forwarding address. No trace. Just gone. I didn't know who those men were. I didn't know what she took from them. But I was starting to understand why she was so calm the day she asked me to leave. Because she'd done this before. She was a professional. And I was just another carefully selected chapter she intended to close, right on schedule. Only this time, something went wrong. Me. I didn't break the way she expected. I didn't shout, or spiral, or crash into some cliché of male rage. I watched. I waited. And now I had something she hadn't accounted for. Pattern. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was systemic. It was intentional. And that meant I wasn't just up against a woman who cheated. I was up against a woman who disappeared people without laying a finger on them, and left them thanking her for the privilege. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't scared. I was furious. Not at her. At myself. Because I almost let her do it again. I printed everything. Not just screenshots or copies, but full-color, hard paper prints. Marriage licenses, name change records, overlapping addresses, old apartment leases she'd signed under different versions of herself. I laid them all out in a grid across Glenn's kitchen table while he slept 2 rooms over, snoring like a dying accordion. It felt like a crime scene. Except I wasn't looking at a body. I was looking at disappearances. 3 men. That's how many I could trace. Only one of them had ever filed anything in court. A financial dispute over a small business they co-owned for 2 years. It was dismissed before the hearing. The rest? Ghosts. No complaints. No questions. No answers. As if they'd either been paid off, scared off, or broken beyond repair. I found a forum thread buried under layers of digital dust, hosted on some outdated message board about civil identity fraud. The post was short. No proof. Just a story. She was brilliant. She left me convinced it was my fault. I didn't even realize she'd taken the retirement money until months later. And by then, I didn't want to find her. I just wanted to forget. No name. No way to verify. But I knew. It was her. And suddenly I understood something that nearly made me drop the folder in my hands. Marlo wasn't just trying to end our marriage. She was trying to erase me. Just like she had done before. That's what the clean exits were. That's what Silent Sundays were about. It wasn't about cheating. That was just a symptom. The truth was bigger. Colder. She didn't just leave people. She dismantled them. Carefully and quietly. Until they didn't want to chase her anymore. And she was almost done with me. I thought about confronting her. About showing up at the house with all the evidence and demanding answers. But that's exactly the scene she would use against me if this ever went legal. No. This had to be smarter. Cleaner. Calculated. Like her. So I made one final move. I sent the documents to her boss. Printed and digital. With a single line attached. You may want to review the identity on her W-2. Then I waited. She called me the next day, 6 times in a row. I didn't answer. By the 7th call, she switched tactics. A single message. Marlo, what did you do? Still no apology. Still no admittance. Just control. Threat. Panic behind polished words. I ignored it. That night, her boss's assistant called me. Said she was no longer with the company, and asked if I'd be willing to speak off the record. I said no. I didn't need to talk anymore. I had already said everything that needed to be said, not with my voice, but with the truth. Then I did one final thing. I sent her an envelope. Inside, one of the printed screenshots of her calendar, one of the retreat reservation, and a single sticky note. No insults. No rage. Just 3 words. I see you. And I never heard from her again. Not the next day. Not the next week. But something told me I wasn't the only one who had vanished in the wake of her exit. I was just the only one who left with my name intact. It's been 4 months now. For months since I stopped waiting for answers that were never coming. For months since the last time her name lit up my screen. For months since I stood in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back at me, and decided that wasn't a bad thing. I moved into a small place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom. Old floors. The kind of place where you hear the neighbors sneeze and every drawer sticks just a little. But it's mine. Fully in my name. Paid for with money she never got to touch. I kept the furniture simple. Bought plants I didn't know how to care for, but wanted to learn. Started cooking for myself again, badly, at first. The first omelet looked like a crime scene, but I laughed. For the first time in what felt like years, I laughed and didn't immediately feel guilty for it. I didn't tell many people what happened, not because I was ashamed, but because most of them wouldn't believe me. Some wounds don't bleed on the outside. Some battles are fought entirely in silence, between you and someone who once promised not to hurt you. But here's what I know now. She didn't destroy me. She almost did. She tried to. But what she underestimated, what they always underestimate, is that quiet people aren't weak. We just take our time. We listen. We see more than we say. And when we decide to rise, we do it with both eyes wide open. I've been seeing a therapist. First time in my life I ever walked into a room and said, I don't know who I am anymore. And someone didn't try to fix me. They just listened. And little by little, I remembered. I'm not the man she left. I'm the man who walked away before she could take anything else. I even started writing again. Not for revenge. Not to publish. Just to process. Just to remember that my words belong to me. Sometimes, late at night, I think about those other men, the ones she left behind like chalk outlines on her timeline. I wonder if they ever found peace. I hope they did. I hope they're out there, living small lives filled with big, quiet joys. Like I am now. The other day, I was in the grocery store, the one where I used to shop for her herbal teas and gluten-free crackers, and I saw a man standing in front of the carrots. Frozen, holding the bag like he wasn't sure why he picked it up. I smiled, put a hand on his shoulder, and said, You'll be okay, man. Just don't forget who you are. Because that's the thing, right? She tried to erase me, but I held the pen, and I'm still writing.